Hello, Planeswalkers.
I'm James.
And I'm Paul.
And you're listening to the newest episode of the Commander-at-Arms podcast. This week on the podcast, we're discussing the state of Commander. But before we get into that, we have our upkeep trigger here to do, Paul. We're going to thank all of our patrons for your support. You guys help keep the lights on here, keep us fed, and everything else. It also helps us to get more content out to your eyes and your ears. And if you want to help support the show directly, you can do that through patreon.com/commanderatarms. All patrons get access to the Discord channel, as well as some patrons get access to playing with Paul and I on Commander at Arms to the Battlefield, where we stream live every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. EST.
Sorry, I just want to remind you, don't forget that there's 2 games we usually play on stream, and only one of them is uploaded to YouTube. So
that is correct. We only have, I guess I say we, but it's really, I only have time to edit one of those games down. It's usually the faster game out of the 2. So we try to get as many games in as possible. It's usually 2. I think once we've gotten 3 in before, but yeah, if you want to have a more interactive experience with us here at the Commander at Arms studio, come and hang out and chat and talk with us. You can definitely find us over on twitch.tv/commanderatarms. So go and follow over there. We're super close to getting, affiliated with Twitch, so we can start, doing more stuff over there, more interactive and fun stuff. So come and check it out. After all that, we have Mail Day and interesting finds. Paul, have you bought or found anything spicy or even just mild?
Yeah, actually, I made a small purchase. Treated myself to a little something with my my tax dollars. Don't worry, the rest is in savings. I'm not that silly. But I did buy a few things for I reworked Saskia into a different commander, which I don't want to spoil right now, but you'll see it probably this Wednesday if you tune in. And I bought some cards for that, including an Aurelia, the War Leader I got, Campaign of Vengeance. I got a Blade of Selves. I got a Fangren Firstborn. I got a few tidbits here and there. And the deck is coming along nicely. It's quickly becoming one of my favorite casual decks to play. So I'm trying to put a lot of time into it and really get it to a place where it can sit down and play reliably and consistently.
That sounds fantastic. That was the new deck that you've just built, you turned from Saskia to something else, didn't you?
Correct, which James knows what it is because I already told him, but yeah. The rest of you don't.
Yeah, and you might even see it this week on the stream. So, I mean, this episode is going to come out the day after we streamed. So if you didn't see the stream and saw what Commander Paul was playing, you might see it on the newest episode of Commander at Arms to the Battlefield, which goes live on Mondays. So if you want to know what all that is before we talk about it next week, go and check out that video on YouTube. I actually had a very productive content week, Paul. I got to stream with Islane on the Possibility Storm over on their Twitch channel. And we played a variant of Commander called Artisan. Now, Artisan is very similar to Pauper, but it includes uncommons. So your commander can be common or uncommon, which is usually just uncommon. But then all the cards in the 99 can be common or uncommon. So I built Wow, I can't even say the commander's name now. I built Tatyova Benthic Druid as a mill deck. We do have a video of it. I did do a deck tech on our channel, so go and check that one out. Tell me what you think, but we got to play it live, and I believe it's going live on his YouTube channel shortly. He did say he was going to edit one of the games up because we did get to play 2 games. So one of them is going to be edited and over there. And if that goes live, or when that does go live, I will update the show notes to have that link in there. So go and check out that video. Go subscribe to them. Tell them that we told you to go over there. Leave a comment in the comment section below and tell me how badly I played Magic, because that's what people love to do. Tell people how they misplayed, right? And how I can't even manage to talk today.
Make sure you pay attention to our Twitter, because I'm pretty sure that we'll retweet Islane's tweet about it.
100%. Always. Forever. So I picked up a couple of cards at my LGS for that, which I thought was really cool. I also picked up a spicy little Bant card that I didn't know was a card until about, 6 to 12 hours ago. It's X in Bant. It's a sorcery. It's called Wargate. You search your library for a permanent with CMC XLS and put it in the battlefield. So I picked it up for Tulane because why not? You got enough mana to be able to throw that down and then combo off and grab whatever. Yeah, cool, sick, awesome. It's a really cool card and I can't wait to play it.
Yeah, I think I play that in my Atraxa deck because I have Planeswalkers in there, which I can also get because that card's awesome.
Yeah, that card is awesome. As for interesting finds, haven't really found anything recently. I haven't really gone through my collection or anything, just mainly bought stuff. Haven't really bought anything super spicy recently since we went to Windows last week. But yeah, cool. All right. Newest episode of the Commander at Arms to the Battlefield is up on YouTube right now, right this second. You can go and check that out after you finish listening to this episode. So go over and head to youtube.com/commanderatarms where you can see us playing gameplay where we do everything that we preach here on the show. You want to run enough removal? You're going to see us running a lot of removal. I love removing things off the field. That is my favorite thing, my second favorite thing to do in Magic. My first favorite thing is to draw cards, which is why I built Tatyova, because she likes to draw cards. But over there we had Beth, aka the Queen of Cardboard, and Danny from Dad Jokes in Cardboard. We got to hang out and play Magic with them all night. We got them for 4 hours. It was fantastic. Played 2 amazing games of Magic. Paul got to show off the power of Mono White and got to show us his Elish Norn deck. There was a Dungeoning Party deck, which was Sephiroth. There was a Squirrel Chatterfang deck, and I was playing my Artifacts to Ready list. So go and check that one out. Who knows who wins? I don't know. I can't remember who wins, and I edited the damn thing.
Yeah, that game was actually pretty interesting. You will notice that, well, I don't want to spoil anything. The person who won rightfully should not have won, but I can't remember why.
I mean, that's fair. I know why, but I'm not going to say anything. So if you know why, leave it a comment in that comment section below of that video. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, we'll have an annotation in the top right-hand corner of the screen for you. So you can click that and then go to that video after you finish listening to this episode of the podcast. After all that, Paul, we have Play of the Week. Do you have anything... have you played Magic outside of us streaming at all?
Yeah. So I actually played just this past Sunday, with a group of friends of mine, and nothing really too crazy happened. I did win 2 out of the 2 games we played, which was pretty
Excellent.
cool. I guess the most notable thing was that in the second game I played Lucas and Max, and it wasn't looking good. My friend Alex, he has this new deck he built. It's a Goad deck, and it has Thantis the Webweaver as the commander, which is like the Jund guy that nobody liked from way back in like the Lord Windgrace deck.
That was only 2018. That was only 4 years ago, dude.
I know, it feels like forever though.
It does.
And it was huge. It was like an 11-11. I barely squeaked out a win on that one. But honestly, the coolest part was that he played, what is the mana burn guy?
Yorlock.
Got his name. Yorlock of Scorch Thrash or whatever the thing is. And he gave me Jund mana. And I was at like 11 life. And he was trying to burn me down. And as he passed priority, I had a clue on the field. So I was like, I'll use the red and the black mana specifically to crack a clue. And then I'll use the green mana to Nature's Claim your Lightning Greaves.
Oh.
And honestly, it was very satisfying because not only did I not have to take 3 damage, but I also like actually got to use that mana to advance my own board state.
Which is something that you don't really get to do against Yorlock.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And honestly, it just even my friend Chad, he like started clapping. He was like, I love plays like that.
That was, yeah, I mean, it's not spicy or big or like game winning, but it is just enough finesse to use exactly Jund mana in a non-Jund deck to advance your own strategy and your own board state. It's fantastic. I love that shit. That's great. I don't really have a play of the week this week. I really played Magic on camera, and I don't want to spoil anything that I did, so I'm just gonna tell everyone to go and, hit up the Islane video where we played Artisan EDH. I did some spicy stuff over there with Tatyova, so just go and check that one out. And yeah, I'm happy to move it to our main phase 1 here, Paul. I passed priority. Do you have any responses?
Good to go to main phase.
All right, cool. So, like we said at the start of the episode, before we started derailing this episode with all of our other self-promotions, we're talking about the state of Commander, and that is essentially what it was like and what it is now. So we have 4 questions here. I want to shout out the Reddit post that I got this idea from. There was this big thread discussion on Reddit. It was the r/EDH page, I think they're called, where I got inspired to kind of come up with this episode, which I linked to Paul, I think like a day ago, and he got around to reading it. It was like, yeah, this is the episode. So we have, like I said, we've got 4 questions here. We're just going to like read them, and then Paul will answer, and then I'll give my kind of thoughts. The format that we do here, the formula, how we do it. So the first one is, what are your thoughts on where the Commander format is today compared to where it was, say, 4 years ago?
So the number 4 years ago comes from this Reddit thread, which may or may not be in the show notes below. Knowing James, it probably will be. But I would say from 4 years ago, honestly, I think we're at roughly the same place. That is to say, I think that power levels haven't really shifted much. I think the overall, what people consider to be the best or most popular strategies are basically the same. I would say the only thing that has changed about Commander is the fact that we now have secret layers pumping out cool reprints, and just like generally valuable cards. We also have like the Commander collections. So I would say the only thing that's really changed is the availability of certain cards. And in that respect, it's even better now than it used to be. Yes, secret layers are only a limited time thing, but it does put more copies of the card out there. And because there's cooler versions of the card out there, like the original versions, generally speaking, go down in price, therefore increasing availability of that card in general a bunch. So I think that where we are today is just a better spot than we were 4 years ago. Not necessarily for gameplay reasons, but more so just for card availability reasons. I think a better number to use is probably 6 years, but that feeds into one of our later questions. So I won't go into too much detail on that. I'll let James take over from there.
My main thing, now I haven't been playing all that long. I pretty much started in about 2018, and yeah, nothing really feels that different, except for maybe the fact that I definitely feel in the last year or so, games have gotten a lot faster. And I'm not sure if that is the way the format is heading, or if that is just the way that my deck building ability and my synergies with cards just gets better. Coming from, just playing straight precons and upgrading those and trying to figure out dribs and draps of different win cons and everything, and now being able to essentially kind of funnel each deck into what I want it to do because I know enough cards to get it there. But then, I always hear these stories about like what Commander was like before I started playing, where they were like, your bulk rares, your bulk mythics, and things that you would never see anywhere else, and being able to cast like a 15 CMC spell and not worried about being countered or something else, and just, these big flashy, 12/12 creatures. Like I think the last time I managed to get a creature that was over like 10 power before I like either won or lost the game was when I played Geared, and I got a 90/90 dinosaur beast with trample on the battlefield. And that was strictly from attacking and getting, just making more creatures with trample and more bigger creatures with trample, and then until I made this one big creature with trample, and then it got destroyed. I think it specifically got Swords of Plowshed, and I gained a lot of life off of it, so I wasn't even mad.
Actually, I'm glad you brought up Geared specifically, because I will say that certain strategies that previously struggled to really find a home now have a commander that kind of houses them. So like tokens before, really your only option was like Tristani. You could branch into like Reese, or there were some other like fringe playable token decks. But nobody that was really dedicated to like making tokens work.
You could go like Gave, sorry, the Guru of Spores.
Gave was like
out 16.
Gave came out a long time ago. I think it was like 2000 2012, 2013. He's an old one. But the thing about Gabe is that he's not like strictly tokens, right? He doesn't really do much for tokens. He just makes tokens, which is cool. Don't get me wrong.
Very true.
But he doesn't really support tokens. He just happens to make them, and that enables certain synergies. The only commanders that really cared about having tokens up until that point was basically Tristani, Reese, and I'm sure I'm forgetting like one or two other commanders that weren't really that popular that cared about having tokens as well. And then Girid came along. And not only do you get a third color, but you get a commander that can reliably make other tokens for seemingly little investment. Not only that, but the tokens that he makes are huge. You know, he comes with a token. He comes with a 4/4 Rhino, whereas Tristani, you had to make the token first. And you can basically do everything with Girid that you could with Tristani.
Yeah, I think Tristani was in the deck, wasn't it? You're talking about the populate Tristani?
Yes.
Yeah, she was in the precon. So I guess anything you can do with the Tristani deck, you would be able to do with Girid, and you add red to its color identity.
Yeah. Like I was so happy when Girid came out because I could play Godsire and I could populate 8/8 beasts.
That's all you wanted was to be able to play Godsire.
Well, originally my best deck for playing Godsire was Mael.
Yeah, very true.
And I hated that deck. I didn't hate it. It was like kind of meh, kind of boring. Basically, it did nothing without Mael on the field. So in terms of strategies that originally struggled to find a home, I think a lot of them actually do have now multiple places to go, not even just one place. Like tokens, you can also build Adrix and Nev now. You have a lot of options. I think removal is also better now, just in general. Like when I started playing Commander, some of the best removal you could have was basically like Hero's Downfall, Path to Exile, Source of Plowshares.
Well, I would say that's like a lot of what you're saying now kind of goes into our next question as well, which is
that's
what do you
true.
think like what do you think has improved about Commander format since like sorry, let me start that again.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think has improved about the Commander format and your experience playing games in the past 4 years compared to previously?
Oh, well, funny you should ask. I think that removal is a lot better now, actually.
It definitely is.
But yeah, to continue on the removal thing, like I was just saying, when I started playing Commander, like some of the best removal you had was like in black, you had like Hero's Downfall. People played like Doomblade as removal.
Doomblade is still such a good card, though.
But like it's very narrow, right? All the removal that we have now is so versatile. Like in Strixhaven alone, we just got like Rip Apart, red-white removal spell that can both kill a creature or an artifact or enchantment for 2 mana. We got a Braid and Amonkhet, which can destroy an artifact or kill a creature. We actually just talked about one on our Kamigawa episode recently, the 1 and 2 black for you can destroy a creature and like bounce a creature back from your graveyard to your hand.
Yeah, that's a really good one. It's seeming that like removal has been so like I don't want to use the word pushed, but I feel like in just like the last 18 months, removal has become one of like, it feels like WotC's biggest thing to print is how to get things off the battlefield.
Yeah, which is in general very good because there's so many good commanders now that like are just basically kill on sight, that it's important to have that removal for those commanders specifically.
So speaking of removal, there have been some cards in my decks that I've been looking at going, damn, I really need to upgrade this. Like Forsake the Worldly. It's a 3 mana exile artifact or enchantment with cycling on it.
That card is still good.
I mean, it is, but I mean, there are still just as good cards out there that do similar effects, maybe even a little bit faster. But I remember there was one of them. We were playing at BAM, and I can't remember who it was who came up to me, and they were like, "Oh, you're playing that deck. Well, you definitely need Sylvan Reclamation. Like it is a powerhouse of a card. Here's a copy of it, so you can add it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Looking back at that card now, that card was printed in 2016. It is 5 mana, and it's a 5 mana instant, so it's 3 green and a white for an instant that says exile up to 2 target artifacts and or enchantments with basic land cycling for 2. Yeah, it's good, but like I feel like we have removal that does this, if not better, and in less colors, so it makes it more available to more decks.
Yeah, that card. It's funny you mentioned that was actually like at that time was considered premium. Like, that card was so good. People love Sylvan Reclamation. I still love Sylvan Reclamation for what it's worth. But like that when that card got printed, people could not get enough of it. It was just it was considered some of the best artifact / enchantment removal you could get, and for good reason. Like at the time, exiling 2 things was like unheard of.
Yeah.
With the exception of like Return to Dust, which at the time hadn't been reprinted in quite a while. So I think that card was actually decently expensive at that time.
But even Return of Dust is 1 CMC less, and it's in white. It's just white. So you could play it in, I feel like you could play it in more decks. Then you'd be able to play Sylvan Reclamation, because Sylvan Reclamation is exactly Selesnya. So you'd have to be in like, Abzan or anything else that has, green and white in it.
Right. But then people's arguments were, oh, well, Sylvan Reclamation, even as an instant, is 2 things. Whereas, Return to Dust, like you gotta cast during your main phase. It was basically sorcery.
Yeah, but you could always do it in response to someone else's thing.
Well, yeah.
So I mean, it's still instant speed in your main phase, but you're doing it in response to somebody else doing something else.
Yeah.
I guess that's one thing. But I mean, like, the other big thing, unless you didn't have any other points on removal,
nah, go for it,
is ramp. The amount of like 2-drop, 3-drop ramp we see now has improved significantly over the last 18 months. I mean, I know Gavin is out on record saying that Arcane Signet was a mistake and he wouldn't print any more cards like Arcane Signet anytime soon. And reluctantly, I would have to agree, because it's way too good. You look at the old signets, the old like Orzhov Signet, Simic Signet, you have to filter mana into it to get something out of it. This is just 2 mana for 1 colored mana. It's too easily accessible. And now that it's been reprinted when we first got it, we got it in the Brawl decks, right? And it was like $11 to $15 cards. So essentially it was mana. It was price gated of why it was so good. Like, everyone wanted it. I remember when it first came out, you and I were sitting at BAM and we were like, yep, cool. We were playing, and we all made a mad dash to Target to see if they had the Brawl decks so that we could pick them up for $20, overpaying, $11 for 1 card in the deck. And you also got a cool new commander to play with, which proactively 3 out of the 4 of those commanders are like some of the strongest commanders in the game.
Yeah, not to mention that one of the Brawl decks actually came with a Smothering Tithe, which, LOL, that card now is like $40.
Which is funny that you say that, because the 2 Brawl decks that I picked up were Tulane, which is the deck that I still play today, and a Layla, because my wife wanted to play an enchantment-based fairy deck, which I still haven't built yet, but she took the Smothering Tithe out of it and put it in a different deck. But right there, like, Smothering Tithe, yes, that is a pushed card as well. And looking at what was in those Brawl decks, you got Shocklands at the same time.
Yeah. But this isn't about Brawl decks. We're talking about
no, it's not.
Decks.
It was the point was about ramp and the way that we kind of ramp. Just actually recently, Paul, we got a comment on our Yarrick deck that told us to remove all of the signets and put in other ways of ramping, because it was just more efficient and more effective than an old, Simic, Dimir, and I can't remember the last one.
Simic, Dimir, and
Golgari, yeah. To take those out, because we had them in there, and I was just like, yep, look, I understand, like, if I was building this outside of a vacuum and I needed to put all in the, the best versions of each card in each slot and push it to where it should, push it just as far as it can go, yes, I would put those cards in there. But unfortunately, like, I was building for a specific reason, and this is the reason why I have these cards in there. And I feel like if you play subpar cards these days, you have to justify why you're doing it to people. Otherwise, they're just like, you don't know what you're doing. You should just be playing, XYZ over ABC.
Yeah. Like, I'm an old school player. You will never convince me that signets are not good. Ever. It's not happening.
You see signets in CEDH. Like, I literally just watched a new, a CEDH gameplay, and they played fucking Rakdos Charm on turn 1.
Rakdos Signet?
Yeah, that Rakdos Signet, sorry. Not Rakdos Charm. My bad.
Flashbacks from the game at the Windows.
Yeah, I've still got PTSD from that. My wife still rolls over and goes, "Remember that time that I hit you with Rakdos Charm?" I was like, "Yeah, it's good times. It was fantastic." But yeah, removal's gotten so much better in the last like year or so. Ramp has also gotten like better in the last year or so, and I guess this is probably why we're seeing, people having turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 plays more often than we ever did before. Because I remember the games that we used to play where it was just land pass, land pass, land pass. Oh, look, my 3 drop. Hell yeah. Oh, look, I don't have anything. Like, how many times did we play games where it was like, oh, this is a good hand, but I don't have anything until turn 5.
Yeah, I used to keep hands that were like 2 lands and a cultivate.
Yeah, because you'd be like, oh, if I just get that if I draw 1 land in the next 3 turns, this is going to be an even better hand.
Honestly, I would say this one might be a little controversial, but I would say that people have improved in Commander, like the overall skill level, just due to exposure of like people playing the game. Like there's so much content you can consume out there now for Magic. About multiple formats, but obviously we're talking about Commander here, where you can learn cool lines of play just by watching people do it. And like, yeah, maybe you won't understand exactly how it works at first, but the fact that you've been exposed to it so soon, or, is just like miles and miles beyond how people typically started playing. What did I start playing? Back in 2012? Like, the way I started playing was somebody was like, "You ever play Commander?" I said no. He was like, "Take this deck." And at the time, I played draft 40-card decks. This guy hands me a 100-card Niv Mizzet deck. Like, how do you think I feel? I see, like, my opening hand had 0 cards I knew except for like a basic island.
Even then, I didn't know what that island did. What does the island do? It taps for what? Red mana?
You tap it and you concede the game.
Oh, right. Yep.
But my point is, like, back then, you just didn't know things that early on. It came from experience. You just played and played and played, and eventually you figured things out. Whereas now you have a lot of people playing that you can watch. Like even you watch me and James on Wednesday nights, and even sometimes like James and I will learn something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, there have been games where I've had to click on literally every card and read it because I have no idea what they do. And they're like, "Oh, I'll do this." And I'm like, "Okay, let me just hold on a second. Let me click that card. Let me read that card. All right, cool. I now know what that card does. Proceed. Do the next thing. Oh, I'm going to click that one as well."
Yeah, I think that players in general are just better at the game now, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But it definitely has changed the dynamic a lot from, sitting down and playing with a group of strangers.
I will also say, like, and I think we've said this before on the podcast, but playing online through Spell Table has increased my skill cap of the game because I'm playing with more and more and more people who give me more and more and more different opinions and advice and different lines. And even outside of just like playing the game, just talking about the game with other people as well has increased my skill cap, which then would come back to everything else that's improved about Magic.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Paul, unless you have anything else you wanted to say, I'm going to try and pass through to my combat phase now.
Yeah, combat results.
All right, cool. So I'm going to swing at you with my gear ed and my other gear ed that I got from Helm of the Host. And I'm going to make 2 rhinos and swing them at you. How do you wish to block?
I feel like Geared comes up more often than anything else in these combat steps.
It does, because it's the only... I mean, I could swing you with Najeela instead if you really wanted me to.
Yeah, that's a new one. We'll take
Yeah, all right. But I also have Derevi on the field as well and a command tower. So are you sure you don't want to block?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, cool. I'm just gonna make infinite combat steps and just, win the game on the spot. Anyway, we got derailed again in the combat phase. What is a podcast without getting some sort of derailment? This is the part of the show where we're gonna go hear a message from our sponsors right now. Welcome back from that ad break. Paul, we're gonna move through to our main phase 2 here, and we're gonna continue our discussion on the state of Commander. So we kind of talked about what was the, what's improved, what do we think and everything. Let's go into these other set of questions we have here. And the first one is, what has gotten worse about the Commander format and your experience playing games in the past 4 years compared to previously?
I think first and foremost, the most important thing to talk about that's gotten worse, I think that people are, in general, and this is not a dig at anybody in particular, but I think that people in general are worse at losing. I think that it's very common for somebody in your pod, doesn't matter who it is, to get salty because like either their deck's not doing its thing, they feel like they're behind, they feel like they're getting targeted, something of theirs got destroyed. Like it really feels like it doesn't take much for somebody's whole experience to just be ruined, and they just sit there and don't have a good time. Don't have a good time is a different statement. They just don't like being in a losing position.
And with like how fast games are these days, I totally get it. Because I mean, if you remove someone's Soul Ring turn 1, and now they're like, oh, I kept a hand because I had the Soul Ring into like something else. Like if you kept a 1-land hand into a Soul Ring into the next turn, a Cultivate, but somebody else, you know, played a Nature's Claim turn 1, destroying their Soul Ring, sending them back. Now they're 2 lands away from their Cultivate. It is really an absolute feels bad, and I get it very much so. Because I mean, like, no one wants to be behind, and the games that you play where everyone's trying to be on the same wavelength and the same page I feel like that is the hardest. That is the worst thing about Commander right now, and I will go out and say it. And that's the reason why Rule Zero talks are so important, because you're gonna have. Like, I feel like there's going to always be that one person at the table who brings a deck, and it's like a quote-unquote theme deck, and then they get blown out, and then all of a sudden they're having a bad time. They're not having fun because their deck's not doing what they wanted to, and no one discussed what the pod was going to be before it played, and this is like the biggest blurred lines in Commander right now, is literally our mindset going into the game versus actually playing the game.
Yeah, that's why, like, when you see me play, in general, I try not to get salty. Now, I will admit, I'm not always successful. But I have played games with people where, like, somebody will play a Soul Ring turn 1 or turn 2, and somebody at the table is like, oh, well, I guess that's game. It's like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah, apparently turn 1 Soul Ring is like the most busted thing you can do in any Magic format ever. Like, according to some players, and it's not. Like, go ingest some sort of CDH content and see the bullshit they're doing. Like, turn 1 Ristic studies, that's so much more powerful.
Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there is no reason to ever be salty. Like, I know things happen. Sometimes you just have one of those games where, like, you just literally can't do anything. In those cases, like, I get it. It's not a good time. You just want to play a different game. Whatever. Yeah. I'm talking about the games where, like, somebody's, like, not even in that bad a position. It's just that somebody else is in a better position. And they're just, like, they get frustrated about that.
Now, I'm gonna let you in on a little thing here, Paul. Because I wouldn't consider myself a salty Magic player. Like, I don't really get upset or salty. I mean, of course, we're all human. It happens. Sometimes something happens outside of the game that comes brought to the table, and it just makes you feel worse when you feel like you're getting targeted. But the times that, like, you and I would play like once a week, and we only played once a week, and I was coming off, you know, I started work at 5:30 in the morning. I would finish at 2:30. I'd go home, have a nap, look after the dogs, get back up, and then, you know, wait for Michaela to come pick me up, and because she would get off work, and then we would drive to Books A Million, and we'd go play Magic. Now, I'd already had a big day. I used to work out in the sun with pools. That's neither here nor there. But I was already kind of emotionally and physically drained from my work day, and then going into playing Magic where I have to be, you know, mentally on the ball and wanting to have fun with my friends and everything. And kind of sitting down and playing sometimes like 1 game or 2 games where I just do nothing. I'd be in the car on the way home and just like venting to my wife about it, being like, you know, like, this is bullshit. I was getting targeted. I got mana flooded. This happened, that happened, blah, blah. And I looked at it. I was like, wow, I don't like that. I don't like who I was in those moments. And she would always bring up like, yeah, like all you do is complain. Like whenever we play Magic, you just complain. I was like, yeah, I mean, like, okay, maybe I do. So I decided taking everything with like oh, well, shit happens. Oh, you blow up my Soul Ring? Okay, like, that's cool, man. Like, I'll just do something else next turn, you know?
Yeah. I remember those days very vividly. Yeah. I mean,
I think it was just mainly the fact that we played once a week, and I looked forward to it so much. And then someone would sit down, we wouldn't have Rule Zero conversations because that wasn't a thing back then. And someone would bring a stacks deck to the table, and all of a sudden you're playing like, 3.5 hours out of 4 hours versing a stacks deck where everything costs 6 more to cast and you can only cast one thing per turn, and then someone board wipes you and then Armageddon's you, and you're just like, what the fuck is this game,
Yeah. And I definitely know what you're referring to, because I've been there playing against that deck, that person. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, wow, I really just spent the whole night playing a single game. Yeah. So just sometimes you got to take an L.
Yeah, I mean, you can't win every game. I mean, we're not going into casual Magic thinking we're going to win every single game. That's more of a competitive mindset. I mean, you're going into a casual game of EDH to have fun and play Magic with your friends. And if you get blown out, okay, you get blown out, but you can always shuffle up and play it again. And it's so funny how this whole episode was about to be like, the state of the game, but realistically, the state of the game right now is how we interact with each other over the internet, over a spell table, over Discord, and even at our LGS, and making sure we're having those open discussions about what's in our decks so that we don't have these blowouts of, someone hiding their secret tech, this person said they're just playing, Merfolk Tribal, but oh, look, here's Thassa's Oracle and Demonic Consultation on turn 2. Like that can happen because technically, yes, they are still playing Merfolk Tribal, but they also have Demonic Consultation in there for that exact interaction. I'm not going to call it a combo because it is just an interaction, but like that is the stuff that we're talking about that needs to be up front and really in the face. And like, that's what I like when we talk Rule Zero, we do it for the stream. Yes, we don't actually do it on stream, and maybe we'll actually put it on stream about what we talk about and everything. But it's really, it just comes down to, what are we playing? What does the deck do? How fast does it want to get to that point? How many combos do you have in the deck? Because combos are fine. I don't have any issue with people, playing combos. And what is your ramp situation? Like that kind of goes into how quickly do you get there? Do you have, how many 0-drop rocks do you have? How many 1-drop rocks do you have? How many 2-drop rocks do you have? How many, sorcery speed land ramp do you have? How many stacks pieces are you running? These kinds of questions. So it's like we have an idea, or even better yet, if we know the decks we're going to be playing ahead of time, we get into a chat and we just link our decks to each other, and we kind of then have a look and be like, oh, that's what we're playing. Oh, this is what we're playing. Okay, cool. No worries. Yes, that doesn't quite... That can't happen in the real world. Like, honestly, like that can't happen. Like you're at your LGS and be like, oh, here's my deck list, and just like whip out your phone and throw them, your deck list or whatever. So you have to kind of come across a way that you can explain and describe what your deck does without being like, oh, it's a 7. Because how many people out there have been told their deck is they're versing a 7 and then they bust out, like a clear CEDH combo.
Yeah, that's true. Honestly, that's pretty much all I have that's gotten worse about Commander in the past 4 years.
Yeah.
I really I have mostly positive things to say about it, other than exactly like losing being harder to cope with.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, out of all of this, the worst thing that's happened is our mindset going into Commander, I think, because it started off as just a casual fun format, which has now been split into like 4 different versions of Commander, ranging from like battle cruiser, low, mid, high, CEDH. There's just so many different variations of what Commander is, which we didn't have back in the day, because we were all like, yeah, we're going to play our Nicol Bolas 7+ CMC spells and not feel like you're behind on turn 1, So moving on from there, Paul, what do you think was a major turning point in Magic's history for Commander?
So honestly, this is actually a question I've thought about a lot. And originally we only had 3 questions, and James was like, oh, we need a 4th one. So I was like, you know what? Boom, there we go. And I think the biggest turning point for Commander was actually Commander 2016.
Okay.
I think that Commander release, the Saskia, the Atraxa, whatnot, I think that established a lot of important precedents for Commander sets going forward that is still followed to this day. those decks had so many awesome reprints, had amazing new commanders. It gave us our first ever 4-color legendary commanders. You know, it established this playing ground for commander sets that they had the design space to work with to do interesting things like that. You know, like look at the commanders that they printed in that set. They're each so unique. Maybe Atrax is a little less on the unique side. But like look at Saskia, look at Brea, look at Kineos and Tyros of Melodus. Who am I missing? I'm missing the fifth one. Who am I missing? I can't remember. James, your silence concerns me.
Yidris.
Yidris.
Yes.
Yeah, even
Sorry,
he's pretty cool.
I had to Google it because I don't know when these commanders came out. I just know the commanders. I don't know when they were printed.
But I think that commander release established like, yeah, we can reprint really cool things here. We can do interesting things. And I was telling James before that one of my favorite mechanics of all time, Goad, literally would not exist without commander dedicated products. It like that mechanic does absolutely nothing in 1v1 60 card format. So
yeah, I mean, as soon as I saw the video that Gavin put out about like a new evergreen keyword, I'm like, oh, I clicked it. And as soon as he was like, it's Goad, you were the first person I thought of when Goad came up on the screen. I'm like, damn, man, Paul's going to love this. From now and forever, we have Commander Evergreen Goad. Whew, baby. Who knows when like the next Goad card is going to pop up.
Yeah, man, Goad is great. It's literally such a good mechanic, especially now that people like to preserve all their special creatures for a later turn. You get to say, nah, I want them to get in the red zone. It's great. And it literally would not exist without commander products. Seriously, it would not.
Yeah, and like kind of like a follow-up question to this really is like everyone's kind of like, oh, Magic got worse as soon as they started printing dedicated for it. Like they were like, oh, we're just going to start focusing all these products for Commander. But realistically, like C16, everything that Paul just said, wouldn't have happened if we didn't have, products for Commander. Yeah, we only got one per year every single year. Okay, cool. But it kind of gave them the place to add reprints that weren't going to affect Standard, weren't going to affect Modern, weren't going to affect any other format, but, the Eternal formats, the non-competitive Eternal formats like Commander, which is our only, non-competitive Eternal format, because you're not really going to go to a GP and see them playing CEDH. You know what I mean? Like it's not like it's top 8 or a PTQ or anything, which I think are the same thing, but I have no idea about the pro circuit at all. Not a professional. I just like to throw cards at people's faces and see what happens. But we wouldn't have this design space for Commander products. Yes, we would have, Commander started by just like using bulk rares and whatever we couldn't get, like whatever we could get our hands at, you know what I mean? But now that they're starting to like print things for it, I think for me, it was the biggest turning point for Commander was when they started printing, straight to Commander products that weren't going to affect anything else. We could get reprints of cards at a like more frequently than any other format due to the fact that we could print them in, Commander decks and print new cards in Commander decks. I mean, like you look at some of the Commander staples that have come out of Commander decks. I mean, you look at all of the free spells that came out of the 2020 Commander decks, the Ikoria ones. You've got Fierce Guardianship, Deflecting SWAT, the Exile one, the black one that I can't remember its name of.
Yeah, I can't remember it either.
Anyway, we wouldn't have those cards if they weren't, printing directly to Commander. We wouldn't have cards like Dockside Extortionist as well. We wouldn't have Savine's Reclamation, which is a really good card as well. I mean, all these cards that we play today came out of primarily the Commander decks. They didn't come out of Standard. They didn't come out of anywhere else. They came out of Commander. And I think that, again, that's my answer to this like turning point in Commander's history is that like as soon as they started getting to print cards that were going to be fun, flavorful, and kind of like, maybe push us in a little direction where they would never be able to go before, but also it gets more cards it gets more cards out there that we can play with, you know what I mean? And it gives WotC this really cool and exciting space to design in, that they're not being bottlenecked down by, is this going to break standard? Is this going to break modern? Is this going to break vintage, legacy, or any other format that we play out there? But I guess with all that, Paul, do you have anything else that you wanted to say on this topic?
Nope. I pretty much said everything I wanted to say, and then you pretty much covered anything I could have thought of saying. So
cool. Well, if you want to continue this discussion, you can get at us on Twitter or Instagram at CMDR@arms. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel, which is Commander at Arms on YouTube. So it's youtube.com/CommanderAtArms. It's where you'll find these episodes in video form. You'll also find our Commander at Arms to the battlefield, and you will find everything else that we put up there as well. If you want to watch our games live on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. EST, you can do it on twitch.tv/CommanderAtArms. Come and hang out with us, have a more interactive experience with me and Paul and our guests of those streams. Come and say hi, follow us on there, and help us get to our affiliate with Twitch. If you want to pick up any cards or sealed products and help the show, you can do it through our TCG affiliate link, which is tcgplayer.com/CommanderAtArms. If you want to rep any of our Commander at Arms merch, you can do that in the show notes below. It'll take you to the Etsy store Bad Fred Design Co., who hosts our merch. And right now, as of like 10 minutes before this recording, our hoodies went live. So we now have a Commander at Arms hoodie that you can pick up and you can wear, even if it's, I know we're going into summer, but I like to keep hoodies around just in case, because who knows when we're going to have one cold afternoon during the summer here in Florida. Who knows when it's going to happen. And I like to be comfortable. I like to be warm. If you want to support the show directly, you can do that on patreon.com/CommanderAtArms. Again, all these links will be in the show notes below. All tiers get access to the Discord channel, as well as some tiers get access to playing Magic with Paul and I on Twitch for Commander at Arms to the battlefield, and be featured on a YouTube video that goes live on Mondays. And with all that said and done, Paul, do you have anything that you want to say before we jet out of here for the week?
Of course. Thank you all so much for taking the time to sit down and listen. Even if it was just a few minutes, a few seconds, if you listened to the whole hour or whatever, it's time you could have spent doing anything else, but instead you chose to sit down and listen to us ramble on, and we appreciate that. So thank you. Thank you to anybody who has been tuning into our streams and helping support us there. It's something that we're still working on and will only continue to get better. So please make sure you tune into our streams going forward. You are really missing out on at least half the games we play, because, we play 2 and upload 1, whatever. Anyway, if you do miss the streams, don't worry about it. It's fine. Go ahead and check out the YouTube, like James said. Basically, anything that we put out there, whatever time you can devote to just watching or listening to it, no matter how long, it really means a lot to us. And I thank you all for doing so.
And with all of that, I'm James.
And I'm Paul.
And you've been listening to the newest episode of the Commander at Arms podcast. And remember, arm yourself with knowledge. Peace.
See ya.